Hi, I'm Sarah Haikiki.
And I'm Erin Babornik.
Welcome to COAB's Adult Ed Advocast.
The Advocast is a partner podcast of COAB's State Advocate for Adult Education Fellowship.
Each episode highlights challenges and successes in advocacy.
We also highlight a new student story.
We're glad you're here.
Now let's get started. Hi, Sarah.
Hi, Erin. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing this Advocacy April?
This is one of my favorite time of the year. So it's been good. It's been very productive, very exciting. How about yourself?
You know, it's been a little bit different for me than previous Advocacy Aprils. Just I feel like since the SAAEF Fellowship, each Advocacy April becomes a little bit more targeted for me. Like I cast a really wide net for people that I reached out to during the fellowship and then the year after. And then each year I've kind of narrowed down on some individuals who are champions for adult ed. And now I'm working on trying to really build out those relationships. So it's been less busy in terms of meetings, but it has been, I would say, more fulfilling because I've been having deeper conversations about adult education. So, yeah.
That's exciting. What cohort are we in?
We are in cohort 5.
Wow, 5 cohorts. That's so exciting.
I know, we're old. Cohort 1 now, so. And honestly, every cohort does like even more and more incredible things, and so it's so cool to watch it grow.
I know every year I hear that this cohort is the best cohort, and then the next year the new cohort, this cohort did this and they were amazing. So I'm very happy to hear all of those.
Every cohort is the best cohort.
Yes, that's true. I'm very happy to hear all of that. So who do we have for today?
Well, as we were talking about the State Advocate for Adult Education Fellowship cohort number 5, it feels like the perfect time to introduce our first cohort 5 guest to be on the Advocast. And so, yes, I want to welcome Katie. And Katie, I want to make some space for you to be able to introduce yourself.
Yeah, thanks, Erin and Sarah. Thanks for having me on today. I'm really excited to talk about advocacy, something I'm really passionate about and very excited to be actively involved in through COAB's SAAEF program. So a little bit about me in my regular day job, we'll call it that. I'm the executive director of the English Skills Learning Center, which is a community-based organization in Salt Lake County, Utah. So our goal at the ESLC is to integrate and strengthen communities by breaking language and cultural barriers. And we do that through literacy, English language, digital literacy, workforce training, all of that good adult education stuff for adult English language learners. Alongside that role, I've recently been involved with the State Association and the SAAEF cohort. And so I'm kind of dipping my toes in everything to just amplify the voice of adult ed.
That is great. So what inspired you to apply for SAAEF?
Yeah, so this might be a secret, but I applied for SAAEF a few years ago and I wasn't selected, and it is the best thing that happened because I don't think I was ready for it at that time. I applied for it like, this sounds cool, let me get into that. And then in between that time when I originally applied and now when I'm officially accepted, I've been doing a lot of research about the state of adult education, what our local landscape is with our elected officials, with our, state and city and county, and just kind of building relationships. And so I think that's put me in a much better place to be actively involved in the cohort now. But I was introduced to the cohort actually by Sarah. Sarah and I were involved in another nonprofit board together, and she'd mentioned that she was participating in this program. And along the way, I think you said, you need to do this. And at the time I was like, I don't have capacity to do this. Let me wait down the road. So here we are. Now I feel like is really the time more than ever that we need to be stepping up and talking about the impact and the importance of adult ed. So it just felt like a great time to be involved in this sort of collective and formalized approach to advocacy, rather than maybe what I was doing before, kind of doing a lot of stuff on my own or learning as I go. I have a tendency when I get interested in something to learn everything I can about it, and so I can do it well. And so I think the SAAEF cohort, I know so far I've learned so much, and just having that collective voice is really powerful. So
I'm the same way with doing that deep dive on everything, and it sounds like, as you said, it was perfect that it was 2025 that you started, because really understanding the landscape of adult education is critical, because you don't really realize why things happen the way they do. And I'm somebody where I like to understand the system and why everything is being done, because then you know what you can kind of push back on and say, well, okay, but why is it done this way? And maybe let's look at this other state and look how they're doing it. And so we are so lucky to have you in SAAEF. And Sarah, I love that you are the SAAEF fellowship advocate. You are like out there advocating for people to become part of SAAEF. Like, we need like a finder's fee.
I remember I was working with Katie, and I was like, you're going to be a great state advocate. You need to apply for the SAAEF position. So I'm glad you did, Katie.
Yeah, here we are. Who knew? I think at the time, too, I was just stepping into a new role in a leadership position in adult ed. And so kind of, Erin, just jumping off what you just said, I think I really took that time to learn more about what the ESLC was doing, the scope of our impact, being an advocate for our organization and our students. And now I'm at a point where I feel like I can expand that circle a little bit. And I feel comfortable talking about other programs work in the state. And as I've formed relationships with other adult ed directors in the state, I've really positioned myself well to be doing this. So timing is key here.
Well, and timing is a bit wild in SAAEF, and especially this year, because the SAAEF Fellowship officially launches at the COABE conference with a pre-conference session. And that was just a couple days before Advocacy April began officially. And so suddenly it's like, welcome to SAAEF, Advocacy April, let's go. So what has your Advocacy April been like thus far?
Yeah, the timing was hit the ground running, right? But in a lot of ways that was great because it didn't give us time to pause and fall out of the swing of things. So we were very inspired at the launch of the SAAEF cohort at the COABE conference, and then truly hit the ground running. So I've been really trying to enhance my presence on LinkedIn, and sharing stories and experiences on there has been so interesting. I think it led to this opportunity of me being on this podcast. It's opened up some other opportunities for meetings with people. And that was all just in the last few weeks. So it's been interesting to see how impactful that is, because I feel like all adult educators have I could pull out, the closet full of success stories that we see every day. So just making an intentional effort to be sharing those for a specific purpose to gather, support for adult education has been great. And then in some additional steps for Advocacy April, the State Association in Utah, the Adult Education Association of Utah, has been trying to lure me in for a few years now. And they've been doing a lot of work behind the scenes and doing some nonprofit logistics work. And I run a nonprofit, the English Skills Learning Center, and I know a lot about nonprofits. I've worked for a lot of nonprofits and served on boards. And so once I started talking to some people about like, here are the steps that we need to take to really impact and change the scope of AAA Utah, they're starting to ask me more and more, be involved in this. And so finally I just said, this makes a lot of sense right now. As I'm participating in this cohort, trying to get a better influence on the state operations, not just my local bubble, to be more involved in this. Well, and then it turned out that they were looking for somebody to step into president-elect. And they said, this makes so much sense with your background and where we are as an organization for you to step in. We really need strong leadership right now. And the time is now. So I said, okay, let's do this. We'll just run it all at once. So in those conversations, I had said, in addition to working on some of the nonprofit logistics steps, one of my top priorities is going to be advocacy, in part because of the SAAEF cohort, but in part because of the reasons why I'm wanting to participate in the SAAEF cohort. Now's the time, we got so close at the end of 2024 with the reauthorization of WIOA. And now is just this time where there's a lot of change and conversation. And if we're not participating in that, we're going to be left off of the table. So that's, if you're not on the table, you're on the menu kind of mentality here. So I know this is a time when we have to amplify our voice. So talking to some of the other leadership in the state association, I said, I agree to be involved in the organization if we can commit to amplifying advocacy efforts as a collective in the state. And they're all very supportive of that. So we jumped in.
So many things I love about that. First, you are highly sought after. That Sarah was like, you need to do SAAEF. And then you got essentially headhunted for the state association, which I think it is a true testament to your leadership, that it's people can see that and they say, like, we need that. You have like a calm leadership presence, which is, I think, really beneficial when it comes to advocacy, and especially in times when things are uncertain and constantly changing. And then I also loved that you came to the table like ready to bargain. Like, I'm in, but advocacy comes with me.
Yes. And it is really important for state associations to have that component of advocacy, because we want to make sure that all adult education in that state stays at the table. We don't want it to be on a menu. So it's really important. And I'm very happy that you're doing that. And I'm very proud of you for doing all of the good work that you're doing. Have you gone to only one SAAEF training so far? I know you just started.
Yeah, we had the launch at COABE, and then we had one webinar so far.
Okay.
So yeah, really early, but I also admittedly spent most of the COABE conference going to all of the sessions about policy, all of the sessions about state associations. Like, this is how I spent my time in professional development at COABE this year, which was wonderful because it just really set us up to know what's going on in other states, what's going on at the national level. Educators are notorious for saying, don't reinvent the wheel. And I think that applies with these types of efforts too. If there are already amazing states, which there are, doing fantastic things, let's take a look at that and see how that might translate into Utah's environment and our socio-political context here. And if we can replicate some of that, like, why not? Why would we not start from a successful springboard? So that's how I spent a lot of my time at the conference. So I feel like looking at a calendar, I'm like, has it only been a month? Like, I feel like we've been doing this. So apparently we've had just a very successful advocacy April and jumping right in.
That says it all. Yes, actually, I wanted to ask how the conference and the training formed this experience that you, and it would affect your state association. So yeah, conference and the trainings. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, I think the state associations have a really pivotal role in helping to form that advocacy partnership, even if the SAFE fellow isn't part of the state association, but or isn't on their board, because it does provide that umbrella under which to advocate as a collective voice. And I do love what you said about learning what others are doing. And that's perhaps one of my favorite parts of SAFE is that there are 40 plus individuals in that cohort who are sharing what they're doing, what their challenges are, what their successes are, and everybody is learning from each other and
Yeah,
able to make those connections. It was through those connections years ago that I met Sarah and that we started the podcast, but it's also how I learned like how to create an advocacy plan and then shared that with my board because another state association had been doing it for years. And I agree. I am guilty of also saying like, let's not reinvent the wheel and then trying to reinvent it because I'm like, well, I don't know. So that's really pivotal, especially in times when we want to see impact and we want to see change and we want to use our collective voice as not backpedaling and trying to redo things that don't need to be redone.
absolutely. And it's also very powerful when someone on the board is a safe fellow. It's very different. It not always happens, but it can shape the whole board and the advocacy piece that is part of the board. So,
Yeah, I think in just making a tie here between at the work that I do at the ESLC, a lot of our adult learners are in the classroom for the first time. And so a lot of what we're doing is teaching them how to see themselves as learners. And I think that there's a really strong connection here to advocacy work where not all educators see themselves as advocates, but they definitely are. I strongly feel like anytime you've shared a success story in your classroom, or anytime somebody's like made a comment that you say like, oh, maybe we could think about this way, or this is my experience working in this population that I work with, that is advocacy. And so I think something that's really cool about the SAFE cohort too is you can start to see yourself as an advocate by being in a classroom and surrounded by other people who are doing this work. So I know that was part of my experience during the pre-conference session is I know that I have been doing some of this work. You know, I have been writing the like declarations for the governor's office for AFL week, and I've been meeting with different legislators, and we've worked on some law for adult ed adjacent things in the past. And all of those times I found myself like looking around like, how did I don't know how I got here. Like, why am I in the room being this leader? And it wasn't being able to see myself as that position. So I feel like SAFE really brings it together where you start to be able to see anybody can do this work. And I think there's something powerful about having the name behind you. So if you're feeling nervous about it, like I am the state representative for Utah for, right? There's something
your title.
Being able to say that and building up confidence for being able to do the work. So I really love seeing that with other SAFE fellows too, was some of them saying like, I don't know anything, or you know way more than I do. And this is the purpose of this cohort. So we can all come together and talk about what's working, what's not working, learn from each other. And again, there's a really cheesy metaphor in comparing adult education classrooms to that, like just being willing to take the risk and learn something new and see yourself maybe in a new way that you haven't seen yourself before.
It's that having that learner mentality of like I am learning, and that growth mindset honestly. Like, I don't have to be perfect at this. And I remember years ago, somebody said, in those moments when you're feeling that doubt, say, if not you, then who? Like, if not me, who's going to say it? Like, maybe somebody will, but maybe everybody's thinking that same thing. And they're just waiting for one person to say it. And then it happens in a classroom all the time, right? You check for understanding and everybody nods they're okay. And then one person asks the question and then suddenly everybody has a question. And you're like, okay, so we did have questions about it. And I feel it's the same. It takes one person making that step to show others that they too can do it. And it doesn't take any particular type of person. Everybody is capable of doing it in their own way. And your example, exactly, like we brag on our learner successes. Like, that is advocacy.
Yeah. And what would be your message for those people who may think that maybe not me, but you, what would be your advice to them that, yeah, if not you, who then?
Yeah. So having joined the Adult Education Association of Utah's board, one of the first things that we did was start an advocacy committee. Because I came with that bargaining chip, right? So we established that committee, and we were trying to get committee members to be involved. And some people just said, well, I don't know a lot about this, but I want to learn. And I was like, done. That's it. Same thing with our adult learners, right? You walk through the door, you're willing to put in the work, then let's do it. Part of the reason why I also joined with all of this is because I started talking about advocacy and just saying, I made the comment, like, we just need somebody to like gather everybody and teach them how to do it. Like, we just have to break down that barrier of like, here are all of the different ways that advocacy can take shape. And here's how we could have a collective effort in doing this. And one of my colleagues looked at me and she said, you realize that's you, right? I was like, oh, okay, great. So part of what we're doing now, and now that we have this committee, we're at the end of Advocacy April, we're trying to answer that question together. Is some of the first things that we want to do is hold trainings, like mini SAAEF cohort in Utah. Anybody who wants to be involved in advocacy can come learn about advocacy, what that looks like, the different avenues that you can participate in advocacy. And I think sometimes you say the word advocacy and people get really scared because they think that on day one, I'm going to ask you to walk into a House meeting and testify on a bill. That's not what we're going to do, right? We might be asking you to highlight a student success story in a more intentional and formalized way than you do around the dinner table, which is one of the first things that I did. Reached out to programs and I said, we need to get more adult education success stories on the Educate and Elevate page. Here's how you do it. If you need help, let me know. I'll do it for you. Just give me the information and let's do it. So we have 8 directors now that are submitting stories from 1 to 2 people in their programs. That is advocacy. So what we're trying to do now is just let people know, like, advocacy looks very different for everybody. And you might be the person who's okay with going and testifying at a Senate meeting on the floor. And you might be okay with making social media posts on the back end. And both of those are advocacy. Both of those are valid. Both of those are needed, and everything in between. So there might be like personal reasons or physical limitations or confidence reasons why somebody might not be able to participate in some forms of advocacy. So we're just trying to help people find their lane and go for it. And I think there's more power in doing that collectively. So really bringing it together with the committee, with the state association, with the SAAEF cohort is saying, how can we have the same message and pull people who are driving in all of these lanes and drive together at the same time in all of our respective lanes. Apparently, I really like these metaphors today, but there's a place for everyone in advocacy, and it's just knowing what that looks like for you and how to do it. And I know that there are a lot of people right now who are looking to engage more than they have before. And so it's just opening up that step. So we're treating it just like a classroom. Like, we have willing learners. We need to be able to teach them how to do this together and having a collective voice moving forward.
It's that differentiated instruction. Right? Everybody's the destination is the same, but we have different paths for getting there. Or perhaps, to stick with your metaphor, in different advocacy vehicles that we're in in our lanes. But I love that message, and I'm so excited to see like how Utah grows and innovates, because that advocacy is also an area where there can be just really awesome innovation, like just different ways of doing things that others haven't thought of before. And yes, using other states as models, but also making it work for your specific state, because nobody knows Utah like the residents of Utah. And I don't know Utah at all.
Come on over. We'll teach you.
I plan on it. I plan to.
Yeah, we should
put us down for the next state association conference. We're going to join the advocacy strand.
Yeah, that sounds great. I'll sign you. I'm taking your word on that.
Okay.
Writing it down right now.
Sounds great.
That's incredible. Incredible advice to people who are maybe on the fence and don't yet see themselves as advocates. So thank you for sharing that, sharing your journey to advocacy, your advice. And so I guess we'll just ask, do you have any final words to our audience?
I'm just so thankful to have this opportunity to speak on the podcast today. And I hope that anybody listening who's interested in engaging in advocacy, COAB's done an excellent job of building up resources, but they're also not the only resource. So just reach out to your communities, reach out to the resources that are available to you, and find your vehicle.
I love it.
I love your metaphors. All right. Thank you so much, Katie, for joining us. It was nice talking to you. And good luck with all the good work that you're doing in Utah.
Likewise. Thanks for setting the example. And Sarah, you personally encouraging me to participate in this cohort. So thanks again for having me.
Thank you. Thank you.